Sure.
Marcus, it's so wonderful to have you on the Everyday Mystic. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Man, we go back decades and decades to our New Hampshire days of, I think, high school, post high school, living and partying in the city. And you were a DJ at the
That's right.
time. and, and I was just a delinquent partying my butt off. Yeah.
I think we
Yeah.
both were.
So, gosh, life has changed so much for both of us. And it's been many decades, but I'm so happy that, the internet, email, social media has kept us connected. And I followed, you over the years. We've like little messages here and there. It was always nice to like hear a little message from you, like, oh, I'm in New York and oh, I'm, dancing. And then, oh, I'm doing, hypnosis. But it wasn't until recently when you reached out to really share more about your work and what you've been doing that I truly understood where you're at as a human and as a soul on this journey, and got to experience the depth of your work, which was so powerful. So since no one knows you like I know you here, well, some people tuning in know you better than I do, probably, right? Like, hey, Marcella, if you're listening, that's Marcus's sister. I hope she tunes in and gets to hear this conversation and our little shout out. But for those that don't know you, share a little bit about, what took you from going from, DJ to then a professional dancer and dance coach into this world of spiritual hypnosis. It's quite a different life. I would imagine New York City and this life. So what was it?
Yes.
What was the catalyst
Yeah.
for you that brought you into this work, into this now?
Well, at the peak of my dance career, where I was literally everything I planned came into fruition. So I really got everything I wanted, from the money to where I wanted to live to we were traveling, and beyond the United States, we were traveling to different countries. It was kind of a wild experience, but when I got there, I was
Mm.
really unfulfilled and shocked at being unfulfilled. I was like, what is this? I was almost like
Yeah.
in kind of depressed from all of it. And I was just like, what is happening here? So I knew I had to do something about it because it felt so empty. And I was just like, I have to do something about this. And I started to look into ayahuasca. And the reason why I was looking into it is because friends had told me about it. And I did some research on it for a few years, but it was just something I was nervous um, to do. It was like, I don't know if I want to really get into something like that. I just don't know. And it's funny too, because you have some of the friends that are trying to introduce it to you, and you're like, I don't think your life's that great,
Right.
so why am
Right.
I going to
You're
do
not the
this?
best spokesperson for this.
So anyways, horrible for me to say, but that's how I was thinking back then. And so I ended up searching for it, and it was between two places, and I ended up choosing Blue Morpho in Peru. And then when I looked it up and wrote them, they were booked solid. So I was just like, how is this even going to happen? And I was booked solid myself because with the amount of work I was doing, it's just rare I had any time off. And then out of nowhere, my student, who was my main student, was just like, listen, I think we're going to have to take some time off. I'm going to need like a month and a half. And I was like, okay. She's like, don't worry, I'm going to pay you. Like, I know this isn't our plan and it isn't part of our contract. So all of a sudden, I had this time off. And then I got email from Blue Morpho and saying they had an opening and it was in the time that I had
Mm.
off. So all of a sudden it was happening.
Yeah.
It was meant to be. And here I was flying to Iquitos, which is in the middle of the jungle. And then, of course, where their facility is really in the middle of the jungle. So, here I was, like hopping on a plane, so nervous, not
Yeah.
knowing what I was going to get myself into. And it ended up being such a profound experience. It showed me what I was missing in my life. It showed me not only spirituality, but how I was missing God in my life. And I kind of pushed that away because I was raised a Jehovah Witness and it wasn't a positive experience for me. And it kind of just lifted that garbage just out of my system. I literally saw these hands come in and lift it
Wow.
out, and it was gone. It was gone. The weight, that emptiness, it just gave me that what I
Mm.
needed. It just filled that emptiness. And anyways, at the end of that whole experience, I hear this voice comes in and it says, "You will
Oh
do
my God.
hypnosis."
Huh?
And exactly. And that was really strange for me too. Like the whole experience was out of this world, but um, that was different for me too because here I am, a dancer, and I was
Before we
just like,
go
that's
into
strange.
like the whole hypnosis
And
journey, I want to go back to what you said about how, you felt the hands lifting out all of the junk, the garbage, the stuff you no longer needed. And then so you're getting emptied, but from that experience you felt filled, right? So interesting.
correct. It just pulled out the garbage and
Mm.
filled me up with what I need. And if we want to get into that experience, the first day was really light. It was kind of like an introduction, and again, it was talking to me, and it let me know, like, get your rest because tomorrow we go to the Akashic records and it's going to be quite an experience. And um and then the next day I'm in there and it's like, and I hear that voice. It's like, you ready? And I was like, okay. And it was like being shot
Mm.
from a rocket, as like these lights are getting brighter and brighter, and I'm seeing colors that don't exist here. You can't even explain what the color is until we get to this place, this of pure light and vibration, and just all that negativity was in my heart just couldn't stay there. It just couldn't be present there. So you go through this experience of shedding, and oh my God, I from like sweating to not knowing what's going on to purging to like just getting all that garbage out. And when we were in that Akashic record place, like it was just such a powerful experience. I couldn't even hold on to anything because there was just so much cleansing
Mm.
going on to even be there. And it was just all new. So it wasn't like what you would get, like you would see some people talk about them going to the Akashic records and all the books and all those things. It wasn't that for me. It was really just like a cleansing of and a breakdown of all this stuff that's
Mm.
been hanging out in me. And that breakdown was happening over the days that I was there. And it wasn't until the last day where it was just all broken down and those hands were able to come in and
Mm.
finally get it out of my system, allowing you to be filled, right? And that feeling, that feeling of being filled is really your true self finally being allowed
Mhm.
to shine because all that garbage was taken out. It's almost like the same idea of as you have a fishbowl with the fish and it gets dirty and you just didn't clean that for a long time, and you clean it all out and all of a sudden it's nice and clear and the fish is all happy. It's the same idea. It cleaned out the fishbowl. It just cleaned it all out so I could just be there and be present with
Yeah.
um,
So
myself
beautiful. So you
fully.
heard
Yeah.
this voice say, you're going to do hypnosis, which was a surprise to you.
Correct.
So, what did you do with that information?
I kind of tucked it behind me. I was just like, okay, yeah, whatever. Um, and it was probably about a year until I actually went forward with it. And the reason why I went forward is I was moving and I was going and packing through all my stuff, and I found this hypnosis book. And it was a self hypnosis book that I stole from the library when I was like 16 years old. And I was just like, oh, wow, that is strange. Like, I
Yeah.
had this interest when I was young. And then it made me remember when I was looking into it around the year
Mhm.
2000 when I was living in New York. And then September 11th happened, and um, it just never went through just because all the chaos that came from that. So, and just kind of went to the wayside. So I realized it was just something I was actually thinking about for a
You
very,
know,
very long period of time.
I just
So
really highly recommend to people that they write in their lives, because if you end up writing, whether you want to call it a journal or a diary or just words, you end up looking back on things that you wrote 5, 10, 20 years ago, and you'll see answers to questions that you still have today that you forgot that you had answered back in the past, or you discover things like that of where you were actually researching something and into something that it never went anywhere. So it's like all of our subconscious blocks, right, are just keeping us from that truth, but it comes up. It peaks out. And through writing, I feel like it really can come out and you can allow it to pour out. And when you keep it and go back, you can look back. For someone who keeps books, that's also another great way too. But I feel like with your writing, it's like you get
yeah,
to hear your own voice from times gone by or past, your true self, but at different times in your life. And it's always so fascinating. I've had the
sure.
same experience of where I'm like, oh, I already answered that question, 10 years ago. And I had a very similar thing happen when I was in my teens. It was probably even a little bit younger. Do you remember there was a Time Life series called Mysteries of the Unknown? And you remember those books?
Oh yeah,
And so
of
you would
course.
get like a book a month and it would be mailed
Yes,
to you and it'd be like, oh, cosmic connections and like psychic phenomena. And I remember one, it was like this hand reaching down from the heavens, it looked like. And they were all about dreaming and about psychic abilities and about essentially, where you and I play now, right, in this psychic, spiritual,
sure,
ethereal
sure.
realms. But when you're reading about this stuff as a kid, to me it was super fascinating. I didn't know why I was interested in this. I was just like, I have to read all, I have to have these books. But then I tucked that away. It's like it went away. And I've had certain books that I've picked up over those early years that also got like tucked away, that I've like discovered again. And I didn't remember even about the Time Life series until I was writing. And I've been working on this book, my own book, for the last, God, over a decade. And when I was in a writing spree, I was writing, and all of a sudden I was typing that out about this Time Life book series. I had completely forgotten that I owned those books and that I was into that kind of information way back
Sure.
when. So it's amazing what we can do, like compartmentalize our own thoughts, experiences, memories, beliefs, and really like have different experiences of our own consciousness, which is obviously kind of the work you do as far as excavating that for people with hypnosis, right? Helping.
Sure. Yeah, it is. And you get to hip all the hypnosis I do is regressive. So you get to tap into these areas again that you might not have remembered in your life. And it is tucked away in there. It's there. Like there's no such thing as forgetting. It's just the pathways haven't connected there for a while.
Yeah.
So, but it's in there, all of it, everything you've ever experienced since you were born. So you can tap into these areas and and awaken these areas all of a sudden. And it's interesting too, like I was looking at it at 18 and then looking at it in my 20s, but also with these types of journeys, a
Mm,
maturity had to be
right.
there, right? So I had these interests, but it also just getting older and going through life and having an understanding of certain things. Being older, I think, also just helped as far as me exploring that and having the interest and the maturity to
Right.
start tapping into
And
those things.
it
And
sounds
I've
like from the
seen like
recounting of your ayahuasca, your first ayahuasca experience, you also had blocks in there, right? Things you needed to shed and release and get rid of in order
correct.
to allow yourself to have the experience of that truth and be able to connect even to that deeper
Sure,
work.
right. And this is the thing. I don't want to knock anybody who's younger who's into the spiritual thing because you see it all the time. But the only thing I throw in there is in your 20s you have to be a 20-year-old. In your 30s you have to be a 30-year-old. In your 40s you have to be a 40-year-old. There's some stages you don't escape as you're learning and as you're doing your things and you know, as you get older you get to bring all those experiences in as you're assisting other people. And even with some spiritualism, the bigger parts of spiritualism you're not even allowed to be taught
Yeah.
until your 40s. So yeah, until you've hit a certain maturity to be able to play and
Hmm.
experience those types of realms, depending on
Right.
what path you're taking. So I think that, you know, being a little bit older too just helped with that journey. And you know, definitely being in my 50s now and working with other people having that
Yeah.
experience
Yeah.
helps a
Oh
lot,
my gosh. I know. I
you
don't,
know?
one,
Yeah.
I don't know how we're in our 50s already. Like, we're, how did that happen? But two, I appreciate every
Yeah.
single one of those days that led us to now to be in a place that is
Sure.
I would say, more grounded, wiser, more, really the experiences that you do gather. I mean, yes, you can bring in
Sure.
all of those past life experiences into the now, but we're still in a human body experiencing this present life and going through the stages of that person's development. And like you said, I mean, we can't escape that pathway of development. And it's not only can you be wise in your 50s, but that the the accumulation of those experiences create the wisdom. The getting knocked down X amount of times and then getting, pulling yourself back up is an accumulation of those experiences. And having gone through, it's just kind of like running the gauntlet. Like, we've run it. And we've right,
Yeah.
you've been there, seen that,
Yeah.
done that, experienced this. And once you have so many of those experiences to, and also you learn from them, right? You don't just have the experiences and collect a bunch of experiences, but you
Right.
actually allow
Sure.
yourself to be transformed by them and learn from them. Then there's just so much to share, so much to give in that way. And it wasn't until I reached my 50s that I felt like, okay, now I'm like truly ready to give. And all the other times I was giving,
Yeah.
it almost
Yeah.
felt like I was giving from an empty well, or like a not completely full well.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. And you know, when you look at those old experiences, like like back then, like in my 20s or in my 30s, those experiences or those negative things that helped to shape me were still negative in my mind. And like being in my 50s, I can look back at it now and I can be like, oh wow, actually I'm grateful I got that experience, right? And I've had some hard experiences, like Jehovah Witnesses. I realized was really, really a hard one for me. It put like not only mistrust in my own abilities because it's a religion that doesn't support you to be yourself. It doesn't support you to expand in life. It's only about the community, only about the religion. It's kind of like it's a cult. It really is. It's just like one of the nicer ones.
Yeah.
but it's still but the whole premise behind it is still culty. And so it didn't allow me to find myself at all. If anything, it blocked it. And it also gave me a big mistrust. What was very interesting is one of my regressive hypnosis came back to 4. And here I was with this babysitter showing me like Jehovah Witness books, and it's showing me like God killing everybody so we could have our own paradise earth. And
Wow.
at that moment, like in my 4-year-old brain, I made a decision that you can't trust God. And this poor lady, who's babysitting me, thinking she's doing good, thinking she's showing me the religion and this child version, it was traumatizing for me. And that mistrust was in there, like in there for the rest of my days. And again, through hypnosis, I was able to see that. And then breaking away from the religion, here I was stuck here. So then when I was away, it's kind of like letting go of a pendulum and it swings all the way to the other side. So now I'm here, like saying, fuck the world, like screw everything. I'm going to party. I'm going to do everything that I'm not supposed to do because they told me not to. And I just made sure of it. I made sure I did everything I'm not supposed to do, like exceptionally
Right.
well. I made sure of it. And then
Yeah.
it finally finds its balance, right? It swings back and forth as you try to find that balance. But it also let me see and all of a sudden not hold contempt towards like how I was raised or my choices afterwards, because they were not the best. They were extremely self-destructive. And it really got to show me how that built who I am. And now I can bring that to the table for any spiritual thing. Because with hypnosis, I also sit now on the council for a Santo Daime church, which is a ayahuasca church, which is a mixture of Catholicism and shamanism. So I sit on the council for that. And it's if I'm there if just people have questions and they're taking this journey and they want to have an understanding of what it is, and you can at least help to guide them, not tell them their experience. Their experience is their experience. Just guide them so they have an understanding, like, is this coming from the astral? Is this coming from yourself? If it's coming from yourself, is it real? Is it fantasy? Are you playing with your ego? Are you really experiencing something? And just those kind of basic things, so they can really be part of the experience. Because now, since that first experience 10 years ago, this has been a part of my life for 10 years. And I help people on their journey, whether through hypnosis or whether through medicine.
Do you feel like those worlds combine?
They do combine, and we're lucky here in Colorado now that they legalized psychedelics here in this state. So it's still kind of like cowboy land with it, like no real rules have been set up yet, but it does allow for freedom, especially in the type of work that I do. And I have experimented with psychedelics and hypnosis. What I've noticed is you can cut the time down, because some of these hypnosis sessions can be 4 hours, and cutting it down by an hour is amazing. And also too, when I'm working with people, I don't want them to be like tripping balls.
Right.
I don't want you coming here like tripping so hard I have to babysit you. So it's using these medicines just enough to open you up, to keep you in the space. You're very aware, but you're not going for that full experience like you would get at our church or something like that, where someone's there and you have plenty of time and they can sit there and help you through whatever experience. So when you're doing it through hypnosis, it's still taking responsibility for yourself in that space. where like if you take some of those journeys, those ayahuasca journeys, you can let some of that responsibility go. Someone's going to take care of you, and you can just allow the medicine to do the work and allow the songs to do the work, and you can just be part of the experience. Where with hypnosis, you're the experience. Like I'm guiding you through your own self hypnosis, so I
Hmm.
just want you to be
Yeah.
responsible if we
Right.
decide to do
Right.
a journey
Yeah.
like
I've
that.
I've talked to some
Yeah.
other people who do, somatic therapy and somatic body work, and combined with psychedelics, different doses, but mostly lower or micro doses, like you said, just like keeping people more aware, maybe more within their senses, and then their being able to release more readily from the shackles that hold them. So it's all there's so many different and uses of the medicine, and at different doses, right, of that medicine, and then combined with different
Right.
other modalities like hypnosis and somatics and regular, other types of therapy, body work, all sorts of energy work practices. I mean, amazing. The combination really is endless, right, as far as how we get to the experience of ourselves as our truth, like what you experienced at the last day of that
Yeah.
ayahuasca ceremony, of like, oh, I am now experiencing myself as the light, as divine being.
Yeah.
Whew, pretty freaking amazing. Now, how do I maintain this? How do I keep this
It
going? How do I
is.
keep remembering that that's actually who I am, right?
It's funny that you said that, because it just reminded me of like my first experiences, and then you get thrown back into the world, and you can only maintain it for so long, and then that dense heaviness of the world starts coming back in, and over time you can forget as
Mhm.
well. You can personally forget as you're wrapped up in the world, as I was wrapped up in the dance world. I had all, it's New York City, it's like you can forget. And like it's taken me that 10 years to really continuously be able to maintain it. And because it takes time, it takes a lot of time to integrate it into your life, to maintain it, to understand that what the medicine is teaching you, you can do on your own. You don't actually need the medicine to do it. That's where you have to be careful about when you're doing those types of medicines. It's just showing you what's
Yeah.
already innate in yourself. Like the abundance is there, God is there. You just have to get out of your own way to
Mhm.
experience it. And we get those reminders. Like one of the reminders I had most recently was that voice, "Do you believe in God?" I was like, "Of course I do." And it's just like, then really believe. And then add that to every aspect of your life, what's going positive and what's going negative. And just that little reminder went a long way, because, again, life is doing its thing, right? And um, you know, paying your bills and dealing with all the prices going up, and just you're all of a sudden your
Mhm.
truck breaks down, and you know what I mean, all the stuff that you deal with in normal life that can bring you down, and we can stay in those elements. And it just allowed me to just again just be free and just understand that like God is always there. You just have to get out of your own way to
Mhm.
experience um, that abundance and that feeling that's already there. And I don't want to negate negative feelings, because like they teach you. Like I made some of my best decisions
Mhm.
being angry, so it motivated me and got me to do things because I was, pissed off. So I don't want to say like uh, negative emotions are somehow bad, because they're not. They're just as sacred as your positive emotions. But it allows me not to
Right.
stay in those states, because if you're in that anger state, it's like toxin in your system. You can feel it just going through your blood
Mhm.
poisoning everything. So it has its
And I would
purpose,
say
but you
the
don't want
same
to
thing is true
stay
if you don't want to
in those
stay
places.
in a perpetual state of positive emotions either. That obviously sounds like the end goal. Like, oh, well, everyone wants to be like positive all the time. But then really you're not experiencing the fullness of life if you are blocking yourself from experiencing quote unquote negative emotions, right? Then you're not actually allowing yourself to go to those
Mm-hmm.
depths to then rise back up. I mean, life is this beautiful dance, right? It's this beautiful flow. And
Yeah.
you could speak to this more than I can as being, you know, a professional dancer and a dance instructor. It's like as you are giving right to your partner, that partner's receiving, but then you're also you move right back and forth between each other, and then now they're receiving and you're giving, and there's this movement of life that without the movement, without the flow
Correct.
and allowing what's meant to be to flow in and through and work its magic in you and then move on, so you allow what's next to come through, um, then we're stuck in
You,
one state or the other, one state of being or the other, and neither of them are good or bad. They just are.
it's interesting when you say those types of things, right? Because there's stages in dancing, and it takes 10 years before you can even say you're good at something, right? And then when you think you can't know anymore, all of a sudden at my 18th year, this light bulb went off. And I'm like, oh my God. Like it was just another explosion in dance. And spirituality is the same thing. It really is. We don't get to skip steps. That's the one thing I always like to remind people. We don't get to skip steps. Like even when you enter and you get download so much beautiful information from hypnosis or from, medicine work, like it still will take you 10 years to say you're good at it. And then when you think you know something, all of a sudden, like something will come in and erase the whole board and brighten the whole thing up. So, it takes 20 years to be a master at anything and to have an understanding of anything. And some people might be able to shave some time off, some people might take longer, because we all learn differently, but you know, that's just the basic way. You don't get to to skip steps. We're still human. And like with your spirituality, and with your hypnosis or with any of that, you have to be patient with yourself because it takes real time to really have an understanding of what you're
Yeah.
being presented with. And and then what you're being presented with, and then being able to give that
Mm-hmm.
to others,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? It took me a while just to be in hypnosis and not worry about the experience. Like I've had experiences in hypnosis where I'm just like, oh wow, I don't think that went well, and what was that? Because it wasn't what I would want, right? And then I get a phone call from them a week later and they're like, oh my God, that was so amazing. And I was just like, really? Because you experienced it different than them. And it took me that time with hypnosis to just
Mm-hmm.
even let go of the
Yeah.
outcome. And once I was able to do that, let go of the outcome and understand it's not about you at all, it's only about them, it really changed the whole dynamic. And in the medicine world as well, like I don't need it. I do it for others. And when I come and sit at that table, it isn't about me in any way, shape, or form. And when you can give in that manner of yourself and not worry about outcomes and not worry about all these types of things, or you're just giving, you'll be surprised what you end up getting
Mm-hmm.
in return. It's bigger than you ever imagined if you can just come from that place of expression and giving of yourself with no
Mm-hmm.
expectations,
Yeah.
you know And again, just to even
Mm-hmm.
that
Right.
took me some time.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
takes that progression, as we were talking about, right, of moving out of self-serving, behaviors, right? Like we both had like those periods of self-destruction. And then it's like, then it becomes self-serving where you're like, okay, I'm going to
Hmm.
repair, but this is all for like me. I've got to take. It's like, and there's purposefulness in that, there's necessity in that where you have like, I've got
There
to
is.
like bring this all in and the focus is here. And then to get to a point of where you can focus the attention outwards. But then there's that dance. I feel like with all things, there's this trajectory of something, the stages of something, and then they loop, right? That there's always this like, okay, well, now we go back to the beginning
Right.
and go through it again and go back and go through it again. So even with the stages of getting to a place of where you've done enough of your own self-care, self growth, repair to be able to give, then if you just pour out, then we're not, ever coming back. We've got to come back to the beginning again so that we can build back up this cycle. So I feel like life is all of these different cycles that we're going through and this beautiful, these beautiful wheels that we go through. And so that's probably speaks to what we were saying earlier about, well, you can like write something down or you have this book that you find that you were into when you were 16 and then it comes back around. Things tend to, when they're meant for you, come back around, or life or God is going to put you back to square one when you need to be to go through it, the cycle again in order to do what you need to do to get back up there to then come back down again, right?
Sure. Sure. When you fly in a plane, right? You have to put your oxygen mask on first before you help the other person, right? So you do have to take care of yourself first, or you're not going to be able to help that other person. I went through something recently, just last year. I found out I had Lyme, and it was really affecting me. And I guess I had it for a long time. But because I was older now, moving to a higher elevation because I'm at 9,300 feet, less oxygen, not dancing anymore, all of a sudden it just came in like a ton of bricks. I
Mm.
wasn't able to fight it off anymore. So during that time period, I had to take care of myself. Like I couldn't like do hypnosis to the top of my game. I couldn't like be a part of the church, the top of my game, because I was like, what's going on with me in this medicine work? And I was like, oh, it's working on my body. It's making me aware that
Mhm.
something's wrong. Like, hey, this is something you need to take care of.
Yeah.
But it took me a bit to even understand that. So I couldn't give of myself the way I usually
Mhm.
could, even in the medicine that actually helped to ease all the symptoms of Lyme, because of course I went the normal route. And in the hospital, I was literally like 1 point or 2 points in the green for the Lyme test, so they wouldn't help out at all because I was like literally 1 point under. So I was just like, wow. So I had to go to a holistic place, Holistic Integrative, I believe is the place I went to in Boulder. And they were able to really find out what was happening with me and do the first stages of starting to take care of it and bring down symptoms and things like that. And then I had a friend who does medicine work out in Costa Rica, and they were like, hey, I heard you had Lyme. Like, I beat it in 3 months. I was like, how? And it
Mm.
was combo and microdosing
Mhm.
iboga.
Yeah.
And that was a rough 3 months because usually combo you would do like 3 sessions in a month, and you wouldn't have to touch that again for, you know, 1 year, 2 years. And I had to do 3 sessions in a month, one week off
Mm.
for 3 months, and also microdosing iboga. And at the end of all that, those symptoms went away. Like it cleared everything out. And you don't get rid of Lyme. It's something that stays in your body. That was something else. It got me
It's
through it.
fascinating to talk about psychedelics as being medicine for physical symptoms when most people, I think, are using them or doing them, experiencing them for maybe uh, psycho emotional relief from certain, or maybe relief from addictions when it's, a psychological or emotional or chemical addiction, or for spiritual purposes. But to actually heal like a medicine would, the physical body is a fascinating use case to me, because I think most people are using these
Sure.
medicines or thinking about using them because they want to, to ascend and self-realize, or to heal maybe again something more energetically ethereal, like thoughts and emotions. But you're saying actual physical symptoms, physical ailment, disease, and those types of conditions you experience. Yeah, healing.
Correct. And that can
Mhm.
happen in hypnosis as well, especially if those physical symptoms are connected to an emotional state. And if you can address those in a hypnotic state, those physical symptoms can actually disappear. So they can be connected in that manner. But also, just there's things happen. Like I had an acquaintance who got very sick from um, the COVID shot. It didn't respond to them well, and they went to a retreat in Mexico, and it was ibogaine, and they were able to completely reset their system and get rid of all the complications he experienced from the shots and doing the full round of the shots, because like some people respond to it in different manners. It's not good for everyone, right? So and all the symptoms gone. Like and he wasn't a friend of mine, but an acquaintance, but he was a hot
Yeah.
mess over it. Like it really messed him up. And he was able to do
Mhm.
that through
Well,
medicine,
and
right?
to me, it makes
Through
complete
plant
sense
medicine.
because the way I look at disease, whether it's a mental, emotional, or a physical
Hmm.
disease or dis-ease, as being all one. That this is all we are one being. We are a whole being. Whether we look at ourselves or treat ourselves that way, we are one. We are whole.
Sure.
And so our body's always going to deal with us as a whole being, because that's where our being is going to deal with us as a whole being, because we are a whole being. But it's only us, our ego, that likes to compartmentalize ourselves into body, mind, spirit, emotions, right? And into these separate camps to be like, oh, this is a disease of the
Sure.
mind. And no, this is a disease of the body. And it's all, if you've got symptoms showing up in any one of those places, it can be dealt with through all. And I believe that if you're really going to get to the root of it, that you have to deal with it through the whole being, and not just, at a physical level or just a, emotional level.
Um, I had a lot of
Mm.
injuries from dancing. When you put that type of pressure on your body, um, like especially not always working with professionals. I did a lot of pro-am, which means you're working with an amateur who doesn't have the same experience you have. And so when you're carrying them in a competition, it can
Mm.
do a lot of damage to the body. And I was dealing with some very serious injuries. And the medicine, first it started with ayahuasca. It would go in there, twist me, like physically twist me, and open everything up so you could feel like these beings come in and physically
Mm.
open everything up better than any physical therapist that I've ever worked with. And it showed me how to connect with those spirits beyond the medicine. And it took time. So first, it was only coming in through the medicine, and they would come in and work on my body and just open everything up. And then it showed me that I could do it with marijuana. I'm not a big pot smoker.
Mhm.
But it showed me I could do that. And so I would take one or two and go into that meditative state, and they would come in and work on my body. It's a strange experience because it's a form of mediumship, and you can feel their hands on you as they're just opening everything up to these micro levels in your
Mm.
spine and in your neck, and showing you how everything's connected. So it would show me this nerve point in my knee, and then how it's connected to the back of my head. It's really wild. And now I'm at a state now where I don't need anything. I can go into a meditative state, and it can take about 15 minutes for me to just relax enough, and then they can come in
Mm.
and work on my physical body. And again, better than any physical therapist that I've ever worked with. And we can connect
Mhm.
in that type of
Can you
fashion.
teach people how to do that, or is that something
Yeah.
that they just need to experience on their own through those initiations?
I've been thinking about that all the time. And I'm like, how can I teach this to someone? And I just haven't taken that step or that door yet. And I haven't had a guidance in the medicine as well, like if it could be taught. So I just don't know. And I've talked to a few people with way more experience than him, and they're like, oh yeah, of course you can do this within yourself. So I know people who've had these experiences, and it would be like, how do I figure out how to get someone to connect with that, and to get them to connect with it, and is it real? Because if it's not, and they're just pulling their body around, then they
Mm,
can hurt
yeah.
themselves.
So the work that you're doing
Yeah.
with hypnosis, past life regression, the life between lives session, and I went and I experienced, or not went, I was here, but we connected and I experienced both of these things. That's also another ways and means for people to connect to their whole being, but the being outside of this earthly body, our spiritual being that resides here, that light that you were talking about, that you experienced, that you are at the end of that ayahuasca ceremony, which I believe we all are. We are all that light. Some like to call it soul. I like to call it soul too, but it is this I am, that entity that we are, that is fully connected to the divine source or God. And we are here living within these bodies in this lifetime. And your sessions allow that aspect of you to travel and to really go to, like you were saying, back to past aspects of your current lifetime, but also then into past lives that your soul lived, as well as into those in between places. And like I said, I got to experience that with you and had these profound travels through those sessions, which were really beautiful. People can certainly look up the work and find out more about what it is. So I don't, let's spend some time though talking about why it is. Like why do you personally feel like people should experience this? That, what's the why for you of doing those kinds of sessions for people?
Most people who come and see me, they just want to know more. And there's tons of reasons. Like maybe someone passed away, and they're like in that experience where, like, is there more, or is that it? They usually end up getting a calling from something, and I'm not saying it has to be someone passing away. They just want to know more. What is this? What is this existence? Why am I going through these things? Why am I having repeating same experiences over and over again? Why did I have that relationship? That relationship was terrible. Like what was the purpose of that? And that's where they tend to be drawn. And then, what I find is they usually start searching YouTube or start searching books. And usually, like when they stumble upon Dolores Cannon or Michael Newton. Those are usually the prime types of books that ends up sending them my way. They start to do these explorations because they just feel a calling to know more. Like, I want to know more. I want to know more of who I am. I want to know what my purpose is. Why am I here on this earth? Like, why? What's the purpose of all of this? Especially, with everything that's been happening, right? Everything that's been happening in the world, um, all the stresses, what's been being thrown out on TV, people just tend to end up hitting a point where they're like, there has to be more. And that's where I find people tend to start
Did you see
searching
an
me out.
uptick in those searches, like
Yeah,
post-COVID? More
I
people
did.
questioning
I
and
did.
awakening and searching?
Correct. Yeah. So it was more around 20, like when everything really started to come down, all of a sudden, everything just really opened up as far as business. And I mean, people were flying me to places, flying to see me, seeing me on Zoom, coming to my place here in the mountains. It's nice and it's just in the mountains in a way. So, all of a sudden it just exploded. Because before, when I was doing it, I still had my dance career. So I was combining the dance career, and I had a burlesque show going, and I had a musical going, and I'm trying to do hypnosis.
Mm.
It was everything. And it wasn't until I retired from dance and moved here to Colorado that I really started to put the emphasis just on the hypnosis. And then it's getting people just finding me, right? And word of mouth and things like that. And again, after COVID, after all of that, is when people started really, really searching
Yeah.
and looking for more. And it can really give you that. It can really give you that more. And it's interesting too, because I would say half the experience is, damn, I already knew that, right? And then the other half is just like, oh my God, where did that come from? And I like to remind people with that already knowing it, right? There's a part of yourself that already knows. It's connected to everything. It already knows. And I was just like, yeah, you already knew it. There's you, and you get to reconnect with that. And the more you reconnect with that, the more you can be aware of it in your everyday life. That there's that part of you that already knows. And the more you play with it, the more you
Yes.
can trust it and trust that experience. And it can really just help you move through this human experience, which can get a little crazy, right? And we can really get wrapped up in it because life is going to throw what it's going to throw at you. You have no control of what's going to come at you. And, somewhere in that spiritual world, you made an agreement for that to come at you. If you have more of awareness, you can move through that with a little bit
I
more
love that.
ease
Yeah. And
as
I
those
love that
challenges
you're
arises.
actually addressing or helping people address the big questions. Those who seek these answers to the big questions of life of why am I here? And what is life all about? What is this life? There's more, right? And people who seek those answers feel it inside. It's just like this drive to know, like, I know that there's more than what I'm just experiencing here, right? I know that there's more than just this, whatever X, right? Suffering or success, or it could be on either end of the spectrum. I know there's more. And to
Sure.
start to seek answers, but from within, from yourself, is so beautiful, which is why I love the work you're doing, because you're not sitting there giving them the answers. You're not saying, okay, here are all the answers to
Mm-mm.
why you're here. Here are so let me help you find these answers to your questions of life. You are helping them tap into themselves so that they can find their own answers within. And that kind of empowerment is just massive and beautiful. It's the opposite of what maybe you experienced in your church growing up, right? They had all the answers. And
Right. they had all the answers. They tell you what you need, and this is what you need to do, and this is what you're supposed to do. And like, I don't do that at all. Your journey is your experience. Like, you came here to be Corissa, right? Like, who am I to tell you what you need? Like, all I can do is provide a space for you, um, where you can find those answers within yourself. And like, and when you start getting these answers, you can start playing in this
Mhm.
experience
Yeah.
just differently, right? And you can actually start wanting to play. Sometimes, like, I went through like periods in my life where I didn't want to play at all. I'm like,
I
this
got
sucks.
tired.
And like, yeah, I'm tired. What is this garbage? You know what I mean? And now, like,
Mhm.
I want to play. Like, now I get to be and express myself and be with this experience, and and just play. I chose to be here. I chose to have this experience. They always talk about the illusion, which it is. And now, how do I want to be a part of this illusion? How do I want to play? What's my role in all this? Can I just have fun being a human being, like, and
Yes.
and doing this, right?
I know.
And yeah, and being with all
Yeah.
the stuff that goes
It's
with
almost
it,
like a cosmic joke that when you finally realize this truth, oh, I'm a divine being of light, and I am this divine spark of all that is, and it sounds so profound. And most people go to this same place. They're just like, oh yeah, okay, now I'm going to go have fun. Human experience. It's so
Yeah.
funny. It's like, the when you realize that you are all that is, and a reflection of that, it's like you
Hmm.
just want to go and experience the fullness of what we came here for. And it is so many of us maybe have not experienced the fullness of fun because you think life has to be so serious and has to be so um, irreverent and all of these things that it also is that, right? But we've blocked ourselves from
Sure.
just
Yeah.
that, the childhood curiosity and the playfulness and the fun of what life is as well. And we get to go back, get to go back in that and
Yeah.
play. I'm so happy that we got to play both in the sessions that you offered, which you hold such a beautiful space and create such an incredible container for people. I experienced, like I said, those 2 sessions with you, and just felt so deeply held, and it was beautiful. So thank you so much for offering that in the world, giving people that
Mm.
space to come home, to themselves and to their answers, and to find that wholeness so that they can go out and have some more fun, have more of a full, rich experience of this life. Thank you so much for sharing today and all of the insight and little gems of wisdom that you dropped, and for being vulnerable in your story.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. I'm glad you got to have the experience as well, because, I am proud of, like, where I've gotten to with it, and I get to,
Yeah.
share that with others. And they leave here feeling great. Sometimes in the beginning, they leave a little confused what just happened to me. But,
Mm.
as you integrate it, and it comes, like, I hear later on, they were like, wow, that was like a really good experience for me. And it gives them that recharge to
Mhm.
re-enter their life. And I'm happy I can provide a space for
Yeah.
that, because coming here on earth is not, it's not easy. This
That's
is the place
right.
of heavy
Earth
lifting.
School, man. Yeah, it is a place of absolute, like, deep, deep lessons, and balanced with, once you get to this point of discovery, balanced with, these really beautiful, fun experiences when you understand it, right? And so the work you're doing to help people just understand
Yeah.
what is all going on here and understand themselves in it is so vital as a catalyst for that, for people to live in that way. I'll put
Mm,
all of your links in the show notes so that people can connect to you and learn more about you
thank you.
and get a session with you if they feel called to that. And anything else that you want to leave, that you feel on your heart, that you want to leave with people today?
You know, again, it's just belief is everything. And like, if there's any way I can support that, and that belief in yourself and belief in what's around you and belief for your fellow man, whatever that belief is you need to continue forward, you know, I hope that one, you find it. There's so
Mhm.
many different avenues that you can really explore and expand on your belief, because it gives you so much support. And then if you feel called to experience it through me, then I'm here
Beautiful.
for you.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
My
Thank you so
pleasure.
much.
Yay. Okay.